Hello, everybody. It's Friday, and this would normally be our Indy Jigsaw Show. But this month we are having a little bit of a pause, and we just didn't want to leave you in the lurch. So we're just going to share with you what we're up to.
Yeah, that's right. It's a pause for thought, isn't it? We've been thinking of it like that. There's a few things on the horizon. Well, one thing that's on the horizon, actually shortly, 11th and 12th of October, is when the Supreme Court they're scheduled their sitting on the whole question about whether Holyrood is competent to pass legislation about the referendum. So that's on the horizon. Although you were saying to me, Fiona, that won't be the decision. That will be when they take evidence, won't it?
It'll be when they take evidence, yeah, and they've got 2 days set aside for oral evidence and written evidence. The decision could be November, it could be December, it could be January. I haven't heard anybody saying they think the actual decision will be in October.
No.
But it doesn't mean we can't listen to the proceedings and have some thoughts on what's been said. And they're certainly looking at various sources that nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And I mean, if you remember when it was about whether Boris Johnson had prorogued Parliament legally or illegally, and suddenly everyone in the UK, or at least a good many of us, knew what prorogued meant because we hadn't wrote. We're all, I think the Supreme Court TV channel got themselves, a high audience as we all kind of sat in there. So I suspect it will be a high audience actually for these 2 days as well. But I think it's how I've been thinking about it is whatever the ruling is, whether it's yes, Holyrood, you can go ahead and do that, or no, Holyrood, you can't. Whatever that is, that's going to be a tipping point, I think, in the Indy campaign. I mean, one way or another. Let's hope it's the simpler way. But if you remember last month on the Indy Jigsaw Show, was that we looked at campaigning again, and we just what we'd done, what happened in 2014, and were those same campaigning methods still adequate, or do we need something new? And you and I and the others on the Indy Live podcast team, we need to have a think about what we're going to do going forward. So I think this is a good time to have a wee pause and let us get a bit of space to do that.
Yeah, there is quite a few things going to be happening. Believe in Scotland are having a week of action, and they're aiming at getting, I think the figure I heard was 300,000 leaflets delivered. Certainly my Yes group's going to be involved in that. We've been leafleting for the last couple of months actually, and we'll be doing that. But then there's also Leslie Riddick is looking to get some kind of website so that people can sign up in order to get notified when when we find out that the result of the court hearing is going to be. So you can have a big group of people suddenly descend on Holyrood, so that if the world's cameras decide that this is a worthy event, they've got something to look at, which I think is a great idea. That's what she did in back when we came out of the EU. And then there's the other thing I know that's happening is that there's a march in Edinburgh. The Edinburgh Yes Hub have organised that. It's the 12th of November. And then this Saturday we've got the Yestival in George Square, which is sort of a music and I assume speakers as well event. So you can see people starting to do things. I think for us the question is just what can we do that's the best use of our time for the benefit of the movement? And is it going out leafleting, or is it making the kind of shows we've been doing, or is it both? Is there space?
Well, yes, is it both? And one of the things that came out of the last month when we were thinking about campaigning, that you got us that really good clip about the Better Together strategy guy. I forget his name.
Rob Shorthouse.
Rob Shorthouse, that's right. Part of that, he was explaining that, you have to focus on the people who you've got a chance of convincing, the ones who are still not sure, but you've got a chance of convincing them. And in 2014, it was maybe 30% of, the population, or maybe even a bit more than that actually at the beginning. But now it's not like that. It's down to what, maybe 10% of the population, because there's a lot of us are definitely yes. That there's a lot of people who are no and don't look very persuadable. So it's a much smaller part of the population that we need to focus. We've got to find them. We've got to work out how do we get their attention. And then, of course, I don't have any doubt we can come up with some good content, because I think we do that. But there's you've got to think through how to get to them and how to make sure they get a chance to see something about what we're doing, or indeed anyone in the Rest movement, and give them a chance to click on that link or go to a meeting or have a conversation.
If this is our last year of campaigning, depending how the court case goes, how the campaign is going might be quite good to touch base with every month. If we're going to perhaps one monthly show, rather than the two that we're currently doing, which would give us just time to do perhaps a more in-depth design of it. So if anybody's got any ideas of what you would like us to do,
what would you like?
Would be a good idea.
Well, we've got ideas. Well, you came up with a good idea when we were talking about it just earlier of using that book, How to Set Up a New Nation.
Oh, yeah, this one, How to Start a New Country.
How to Start a New Country. Yeah.
That's one of Commonweal's, and it's actually, I was just flicking through it. I mean, reading it intently. I was just reading it this morning, refreshing my memory. And so much of this is still relevant and still, it takes some of the fear out of it. It just becomes methodically, these are all the things we'd have to do. Some of them, though, I think would probably have changed quite a bit because of Brexit. Although we're not giving you a proper Indy Jigsaw this month, we could just give you a little flavour of what's coming up and maybe take you around some of the other ways that you can access our content or get in touch with us if you'd like to. So shall we start with this month's Mibby's Eye Show is all about the EU, and we've got a great guest who Marlene interviewed, Kirsty Hughes, and that was very Hughes.
She's a writer and commentator on politics of Scotland, UK, but particularly the EU. And she founded and she was the director of SER, Scottish Centre for European Relations, which sadly is no longer exists. But she's very well thought of, and I've interviewed her before. So we asked her if she'd come on, and I just found it fascinating. I mean, it was fascinating. I'm laughing because actually I always get fascinated when I'm interviewing someone, because you never quite know what they're going to say or where it's going to go. But I thought it was really good. She knows the subject inside out, and she's just really good at putting it in a simple and clear way of speaking about it. So I think that's going to be a really good show.
So. I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions about the EU or EFTA or none of them. But I think to have it laid out the way Kirsty did about just the practicality of, well, which alliance are you in at any one time? Which trade deal are you subject to? And inevitably, there's going to be a three-way interest between the EU, the UK and ourselves. And that, just the way she explained it, I thought was really helpful. And some of the myths around about, EFTA's the easy option, you could get there from day one. She sort of explains why it might be an option, but it's not quite the magic solution that perhaps has been proposed.
I think what I just appreciated about talking to Kirsty was, no matter which pathway we end up taking, nothing kind of magically opens. You can't say open sesame and it's all right and it'll all happen straightforward. Everything's got its complications, but there are definite pathways. There are definite points where a decision's made about what one we want to focus on, and she's just so clear at laying that out, which is why it's called what it's called, isn't it? Pathways to Europe for Scotland.
And as well as having that episode, which will be the full length interview with Kirsty, we will also be putting smaller sections from that, little clips from that, in our other YouTube channel. Our main show goes out on Independence Live's YouTube channel. But we also have an Indie Live Extra one, which originally was sort of tied in with our podcast. As you know, we do Scottish Independence podcasts. And quite often you've got a bit of video that would go along with the podcast. So it's quite handy to have somewhere just to be able to park those things. If you've not looked at that YouTube channel, do have a little explore, because there's an awful lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah.
And often things that you won't see anywhere else.
And then, of course, you know, the podcasts themselves, you can get them, well, wherever you normally get your podcasts, you'll be able to find Scottish Independence podcasts, which are our ones. We also put them onto our website. And the advantage of that is you can just look under kind of categories. So if you're interested in ones about defence for Scotland, there's a whole series of those. If you're interested in sort of connections with Europe, there's a whole category of those. So it's a little bit easier to find what you want.
Talking about the podcast, and this is Friday. We always have a podcast episode out on a Friday. And today's one is an event that Yes Falkirk put on. And again, it's about campaigning. And it had Leslie Riddoch, Grant Toms, who we featured in one of our previous shows. And the discussion is about visibility. And
That's just reminded me of a little outing I had a couple of weeks back with a Canadian friend of mine who's been over for a few weeks holiday, and the pair of us drove up to Stronachlacher, which is a settlement at the west end of Loch Katrine. So there's not much there except that there's a lovely place to go for a walk, and it was a beautiful day, so we did. But there's a lovely cafe there, so we had lunch. She's not from Quebec, but her father was a Quebecois, and she speaks, you know, Canadian French, Quebec French. So I came out after her, and she's along on the veranda chatting away to what I took was French, but I wasn't quite sure, to these guys who were sitting there. And turned out they were Quebec. So friend Alison's out there, she's chatting away to them in French. I go out, and after a bit, I said, what do you think about Scotland being an independent country? And they all went, oh, yes, definitely. You should, it should be. And one of them said to me, well, are you campaigning at the moment? Are you campaigning? And I went, not in the sense that we were in 2014, not actively, although there is a lot goes on in the background, but we're at 50-50, you know, yes, 50 no. And he went, well, okay. If you're at 50-50 and you're not campaigning yet, you're going to win, aren't you? And we went off with them all wishing us good luck in the next referendum.
so the other thing on the website that you'll find is that we blog. Well, rather, Marlene blogs a lot more than I blog. But there's some really, really interesting articles on that. And if you've enjoyed a podcast on a particular theme, have a look and see if there's a blog to go with it, because often there's an awful lot more information and links and things, which is if you want to look in depth on something. If you haven't already signed up to our MailChimp, then do so, because we put out one a month, and it's usually a roundup of any blogs that we've done during the month. You'll get a link to them all in that one mailing, so that's quite good, and it saves you go hunting.
That comes out about the middle of the month, and then sometimes at the beginning of the month I write just a general sort of update newsletter type of thing. In fact, I'm about to send one out at the moment. So if you want to get that into your email inbox, then go to our website, so Scottish Independence Podcasts. Go to that website, and there's a link there that takes you to the sign up form.
So we'll put the links down below to the website and things. At Scottish Indie Pod is us. So if you want to get involved in a conversation or ask us questions or give us suggestions, anything like that. Also, what we do try and do is share other podcasts that we're aware of that we think that people will like Leslie Riddoch. Scotland's Choice is a good one. Commonweal Policy Podcast. So if you follow us on Twitter, chances are you'll find quite a lot more podcasts than just ours. And TikTok, we have put out probably not as much as one a week. We started off trying to do one a week. In fact, we started on trying to do one a day. Then it went to one a week, and now it's sort of one when we've got something we think would work. If anybody wants to come and be our TikTok assistant or director, pick your title. Please get in touch.
I know the number of followers aren't huge by TikTok standards, but it's about 800 or something.
It was about 800, yeah.
Yeah, and and some of them have had thousands and thousands of views. So
we did a very, very quick literally about 30 seconds worth when we went to Loch Lomond, and we were getting some footage for the episode we did on land reform. And we just sort of pointed the camera at the water and just said, oh, this is Loch Lomond, this is what they want to do with it. And that got loads and loads of hits. And people were sort of going, really? That's terrible. I didn't know that. Well, that's quite amazing that you can get a message out quickly that way. So we will do more with TikTok. But if anybody wants to help.
If anyone wants to help, please get in touch. Well, should we leave it there then?
Yes, well, that was a bit more of a fireside chat than an Indy Jigsaw episode, but hope it was. We didn't want to just leave you, as I said, with nothing on a Friday morning. If you've got used to us being around, well, we'll be going out on the 19th with our EU episode, as we said, and then in November we'll take stock what we're going to do. But whatever it is, we will have something for you in November, and it'll be great.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.